All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for being here for this February 2026 meeting of the Freight Advisory Committee. We will start with some brief introductions. So if the folks online can type their name and organization in the chat, we'll go around the room, then I'll read those off. For those of you who don't know me, I am Ethan Townsend with the Capital Region Transportation Council. I handle our freight planning efforts, including coordinating this meeting, the Freight Advisory Committee.
Dave Monteverdi, with the Albany County Airport Authority. I do, their planning and the business development, most of the stuff related to that.
Tom Phelan, VHX Engineering and do a lot of work with other firms in the region, Gannett Fleming and Michael Baker. So just here to hear what's going on.
Ben Thompson, DOT retired and still driving for Hertz Car Rental.
Erica Beckford, MC Samuels Logistics. We work with shippers and manufacturers to move freight across the US.
Peter Comenzo, the town planner with Town of Rotherham.
Good morning, Andrew Tracy, also with the Capital Region Transportation Council.
John Scavo with the planning department for the town of Clifton Park.
Jeff Otovich from RPI.
Adam McCarville from the Transportation Council.
John Shannon for Bolton.
Great, and then online joining us, we have Dr. Catherine Lawson with U Albany, Valerie Dean with NISDOT Region 1, Claude Amani with FHWA, Ken Lambert with Saratoga County, William Fitzgerald with NISDOT Region 1, David Rosenberg with NISDOT Main Office, Ryan Riper with Town of Wilton, Leah Rye, and Martin Bolt from the Transportation Council. So let's get into the agenda. Quick hybrid meeting guidelines for those online, just mute your microphone when not speaking. If you have something you'd like to contribute, feel free to toss it in the chat or raise your hand. I should be able to see either one of those, and I'll get to your comment when we have a pause in the conversation. So our agenda today, welcome and introductions are done. Our feature presentation today is going to be about the freight operations at the Albany County Airport, presented by David Monteverde, we'll get to momentarily. Then we have just a couple of quick discussion items about the ongoing planning efforts here at Transportation Council. Then we'll have our typical participant updates section where anyone in the room or online who has anything freight related going on is welcome to share and discuss as a group. And then we'll go over our upcoming meetings for the rest of the year. So I will turn it over to David.
Thank you. Easy to go up here.
Wherever you want. You can do it from your seat. You can do it.
My ballpark, so.
Yeah, right here. You're the boss.
Well, good morning, everybody. Like I mentioned to a couple of the friends here, this is my first non-aviation presentation in a long time, even though it's quite a bit focused on aviation. So brief background on me is I've been at the Albany County Airport for about 3 years now. I've kind of spent about 8 years previously at Westchester County Airport, which doesn't have any freight whatsoever. So it's been nice to kind of learn what goes into cargo at an airport here. So, and if any of this you already know, please, let me know. Make sure the next one is a little bit more fun. But real briefly, you go to the next slide. I tried to touch on everything in terms of what we do now, which I kind of mentioned is kind of standard, what you'd expect at an airport like Albany, but also to what we could do in the future. I think Ethan, one of the first times I spoke with you, I mentioned that if there's anything the airport can do in any of these conversations, feel free to reach out to me because, I don't know how our effort has been in the past, but I know that a lot of airports are moving towards supporting some community projects in a way. I have a couple of examples on here. It's just becoming more of a common sight, I guess, and that's something you guys might understand more than I in terms of why it's more practical. So we have scheduled normal day-to-day cargo operations. So, we have FedEx, we have UPS during the peak holiday season. You see a uptick in a couple flights per day. We get some feeder flights. If you know what feeder flights are, it's the little caravans that come in, load onto the larger aircraft, and they go to the super hub down in Memphis or Indianapolis, or sorry, Louisville. Ad hoc, we don't really have a lot, but I'll speak on to what that means and what it could do in a little bit. We handle standard cargo aircraft. Whenever people hear cargo aircraft, they think of the Antonovs, those large ones that have 7 engines. But, you know, we do pretty well. We handle the Boeing 757 and 767 pretty comfortably, which is a standard size. You know, we've seen 747 diversions in the past. Those aren't supposed to be here, but we handle them fine, so we know what we can do when that happens. You know, we have a lot of room at cargo that's kind of, no, not utilized right now. I guess, you know, we have 2 aircraft per day. We have room for another 2, probably another 3 or 4 if we move some things around and paint it for it. And you know, there's a lot of room to do a lot more, you know, as we move forward. We used to be more of a regional, feeder for a lot of these outstations like Messina, Ogdensburg, upstate. They used to have those caravans go out, come to Albany. I don't know what happened. I guess there's a lot of mail contracts that kind of go around and things come and go as time goes on. So we see them show up, we see them go away. We don't really have much of a heads up when we're gonna get, you know, we just kind of see it there. They're very self-sufficient. You know, they're not like airlines where they tell you the schedule every month. You know, a lot of it's put together as they go too. So, so standard cargo is full service. And I use this phrase because I see it on a lot of these websites that handle a lot of this work, mission driven. So it's something specific to a project, to a logistical need. It's actually much more simple than our standard cargo because, you know, you're just kind of loading on a plane and going. You're not really waiting for FedEx to show up, you know, shipping labels, anything like that. You know, the air operator provides you the aircraft, you load and you go. It's as simple as that. So I did want to touch on that because that might help if anybody comes to you and, you know, you see a need or not a need, but it might be something worth talking about. It might help you. You can go next slide. So like I said, we're well under capacity. Yeah. I'd have to look around and see where we stand to other airports to really know. I did it briefly. I know we're highest in the upstate area, other than Syracuse, which has some feeder flights. So, you know, we had DHL for a while up into 2024, and that wasn't due to us in any reason. It was a union issue, I believe. And they mentioned that it's nothing against the airport. We like Albany as a community. If we can come back one day, we will. So we're hoping that they do come back because they were starting to increase by the time that happens. And then our master plan, I didn't put it in here, maybe I should have, but we have a large project that can be revisited one day if we ever have a need for the cargo facility to expand more in the footprint there. You know, I guess it ties back to conversations of 4 or 5 years ago before I was even here, that just didn't materialize, that could end up materializing in the future. I guess, like I said, a lot of these contracts come and go very quickly, so. We'll see, you know, what the next 20 years, how that plays out. So you can go to the next slide. So, oh yeah, here are our numbers, I guess. You know, like this short tons, these are probably things you're familiar with more than I am, but you know, we do about 10,000 per year. This is the past 12 calendar months. And like I said, it's about almost 1 departure a day. It's because the weekends they don't fly. You'll see they come in on Saturday morning, don't leave for Monday night, usually, so see them sit there. And you'll notice we have a couple extra UPS, like you'll see 2 over the weekends now, that's new, that's as of about 2 months ago, so they've already increased a little bit there. And then one of them actually, you might see lands at 3 AM, departs at 4 AM in Syracuse, that's Fatwater's. Doesn't do as much because it's an upstate run, yeah. You go next one. So kind of what I meant by, you know, working with the community and supporting things. I should have put it on here. I don't know why I didn't think of it until right now, but a perfect example locally is, remember that horse transport plane that the 727 used to transport the horses here for Saratoga? So they had like a need right there to get the horses here. It's very unique. They still do it. So I talked to them this past year, kind of like, hey, where's your plane then? Because it hasn't been here in a few years. And I guess what happened was that plane was so old, it was not practical anymore to keep it airworthy. So they retired it and they're using FedEx until they can kind of figure out. Yeah, so they ship them into Newark and drive them up. So that's a perfect example of what we did have. So we've done it in the past. Yeah, this is a large example, Benito Spartanburg and BMW. So GSP is very similar in size. They're probably a little bigger, a little smaller, not by much, than us, but they had obviously the need with the BMW plant right there. That's not something FedEx, UPS would be involved in. That's something that BMW is gonna ship on their own. So like these carriers are European carriers. They're well known. They have every certificate to fly in America. That's important because you know, we don't really have a lot of companies locally here that might do that. You know, these brokers will find them for you. It's not something you have to really worry about too much. But you know, they don't have to be a cargo hub. They're not a cargo hub. Other than that, they probably have exactly what we have in terms of UPS, FedEx, all these things. And then you can go to the next slide. Huntsville is another airport. I thought that was a good example. I mean, I don't know if we could do 3 747 side by side. It'd be nice. We'll try it, but you know, they have a lot of Department of Defense work that they don't really say what they're transporting, but you know, if you look at their the flight radar for the airport, they're going all over the world. So Huntsville is an airport much smaller than Albany. They probably have a quarter of the flights that we have. Same thing with passengers. But you know, they were approached and they got by the community saying, hey, we would like to do some stuff with the Department of Defense. We just have no way of getting it out of Huntsville right now, and that's what they came up with, and it's working out pretty good. It's probably been a 10-year partnership for them. I believe at least 10 years. So you can go next time. So by payload, so a lot of this is not a guarantee that we can do anything because everything's weight oriented at the airport. We're in very good shape. We'd have to look at. I think very few of these we wouldn't be able to do. Probably maybe just these two. Maybe even this we could do. I don't know. We'd have to look at it because we've never done it. I can't really speak to it. But this is by payload, metric tons. So these are where is it? These are the ones we get now. We've never had to do anything above it, which was the 767. If you get this slide deck. But it's something we would look at with our engineers. We get diversions all the time, 777s, 787s. They're likely just as heavy, if not heavier. And we have a spot for them in this upcoming summer. You'll see some construct away from the terminal. You'll see construction where we're redoing our GA apron and we're putting in a pad there, concrete pad for large aircraft. So particularly once that's done, this becomes a whole lot easier to support. But yeah, I want to, and then you go to the next slide. I think it's just by volume. So obviously payload and then the volume, the shape of the aircraft matters a bit. You know, how you fit it in there. So another good example is these manufacturers who like Boeing, Airbus. You might see those like puffy, like 747 and the Beluga. They ship like wings, so they'll say we'll ship the wings and then we'll train the fuselage to wherever they're putting together. So you know, I didn't put that on here because I think those are owned by the manufacturer, Boeing and Airbus. But you know, all these aircraft, this is the volume, you know, specifications that they provide. So you can go to the next slide. So if this is something of interest ever in the future, they have brokers that handle this pretty on a daily basis. So Chapman Freeborn is the one that's most commonly used in America, but those other three also do service. And they'll handle the logistics. So you can literally go on the website, book it in, click through, and you'll get a quote like that. And then you can go next time. And they're the charter operators. You know, we do have some in America. That's Coletta. You know, they're based out of Willow Run in Detroit area. I say this because an airport that starts seeing Coletta all of a sudden starts seeing it like frequently. I'm from Worcester, Mass. We see it now probably a few times a month. I don't know what the local need is. I can kind of find out and you know see if it's of interest, but you know, it just seems to be an easy thing for when people look at it, you know. And they're 24/7, 365. So it's just like if I was trying to get my college hockey team from, because I think we have a charter this weekend. It's the same thing as a charter, it's just with cargo, not passengers. And then I provided a list on the next slide for reference, just to give you an idea where to start if this is something that comes up. You know, smaller is like everything that, you know, actually probably smaller than what we have now because larger missions would probably be what we have now. UPS compared to UPS and FedEx. And then, foreign operators that do a lot of work in the country, Air Atlanta, which is Icelandic. Challenge Group and Network Group, both of them are Belgian, so. So, and that was it. I figured this was probably one of those things where might have questions a lot more. I just wanted to touch on some things going on. You know, it's pretty straightforward, but I'd love to hear thoughts or answer any questions.
Yeah, open up for questions. I know I have at least one.
I have several too.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, good.
Go ahead.
I'm ready.
All right. Yeah, the first one I would add, then I'll go back to Ethan here. You talk a lot about the service here. Can you give just a brief description of the facilities on site? Are these like UPS and FedEx? Do they have dedicated facilities on the airport? Or are they just transferring from the aircraft to their truck fleet to go to local?
My understanding is, because it happened way before I wake up, we have local facilities that they sort and then send them to the facility for the last mile. So they're not going directly from our facility. There's no sorting or anything direct from where we are in the airport. It goes to a local facility here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom. Evan, sorry.
I gotta tell you a personal story of
Sure.
air freight at your terminal. And this gives you somewhat of a range of the kind of commodity that is handled. After I retired from DOT, I drove part-time for the Shaker Group, now known as Shaker Logistics, for a couple of years. So one time I had an assignment, an 80-pound box of human parts to go to a hospital in Burlington, Vermont. Okay, it was either a van or a car, so I ran it up there, no problem. 2 days later, Ted, would you go back and get that box?
Same one?
Same box, you bring it back. So, brought back about 80 pounds, took it to the air freight terminal, rejected. The manifest said 75 pounds of dry ice. And for some reason or other, and I don't know air freight regs, that was too much dry ice. They wouldn't take it. Call the terminal, okay, fine, bring it back. So I brought it back. That was the end of my involvement. But my boss took it, opened it up. It was only 15 pounds of dry ice. They had written the manifest wrong. And the dry ice was preserving 3 human heads.
Oh, great. Yeah. Oh, I hope you didn't see that part. Yeah, that's
Unfortunately, that was above my pay grade.
You just see a lot of that, and especially in Albany, we have a lot of med flights. It is an example, kind of what we're talking about, you know. They're 24/7, 360, and I'm talking like, you get a call, hey, half an hour, we have a flight, and you have to get out. I mean, you know, I have airports at previously, and those pilots are like, it's good time, and we like what we do, it's just hard sometimes, you know.
My other question is, I assume you are Steve Iacetta's successor.
I hear that once a meeting, I am. Yeah, that's me.
When you stop hearing you, then you know you're firmly established.
We'll get there. Yeah. No, I'm proud to be Steve's successor. O'Connor, I guess, and then me. I don't know how involved. I literally don't know how involved he was in fact. I love coming to these meetings. I've learned so much. You know, so happy to be involved in anything you guys offer, honestly.
My question was, you said that everything at the airport is based on weight. Is that based on the weight that the runways can handle as the planes land and take off, or is it based on where the planes are parked?
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually. Yeah, it depends on, it could be a mixture of it, and usually it's almost always something you just have to figure out how to put together, not really anything that will hold you back. And it depends on what it is. But like, for example, a lot of it comes down to like the amount of wheels that the aircraft has. It disperses the weight pretty efficiently, where even though it's way heavier than other aircraft we get, and might be able to take it versus another one. So that's what I mean by it's based on weight, is it's something we have to look into. Sometimes we have to consult out, and like if we're like a pavement type of consultant and say, we want this aircraft here, can we do it? And usually that's when we find out. The saying I got, and I'm not gonna quote who it came from, but it was like, you can handle anything almost once, almost anything at least once. I was like, okay, well, that helps, I guess. Yeah.
And then I did have another question. One of the things that I've worked a bit in some major cargo hubs, JFK,
Mhm.
Philadelphia, and one of the things, just one of the trends in the industry that's been observed over the last 25, 30 years is a slow migration away from dedicated freighter cargo to belly cargo in passenger aircraft.
Mhm.
So at JFK, for example, during the recession in the 2008, 2009, they lost a lot of capacity on inbound flights, not because the freighter operations changed, but because that the passenger airline industry was reducing passenger flights. So Heathrow to JFK, they lost half their capacity because American Airlines cut half their flights.
Yeah,
Do you deal with a lot of belly cargo here? And does the passenger airline schedule affect your operations here?
so when I run the numbers, because part of my job is air service, I don't note it because it does show you. It's negligible, it's very little. I think when you see a lot of that, it's out of airports like JFK because there's only so many flights between like London or somewhere. Like I hear those stories mostly from like a Dublin to JFK type of thing where they only have so much capacity on that type of segment. For us, our airlines particularly want that bag space because they can charge you for it.
Right.
So we don't see nearly as much. I think we get a little bit. It is something that particularly after COVID, airlines were definitely migrating towards and never since then. And, it's mostly in reaction to kind of how the industry is in general. They've been focusing on those ancillary charges like bags and, there's more of a focus on that lately. So.
Yeah, and just to clarify that, one of the things that was feeding that trend is that as baggage fees were rising to
Mhm.
capture baggage from passengers were just traveling lighter.
Yeah.
And so I want to go take one bag instead of two. And so therefore they had additional capacity in the cargo hold. This as long as we're flying from Dublin to JFK, we might as well
Yeah.
contract with FedEx to go fill up the rest of our cargo.
Yeah, there's definitely contracts. Like, I know a good example is my friend works at Islip in Long Island. And I know that the Baltimore run they have with Southwest, there's a contract to ship lobsters on it. And it's very important because I guess those lobsters come right out of wherever they do. I went to school in Long Island and so like, I don't even know where it comes from, right? But all I know is that 8 a.m. Baltimore flight has to get out because the lobsters have to get to where they gotta go. So we don't have anything like that. So if we did, I would definitely know about it and I would tell you, but maybe one day if we have anything close to here as lobsters,
For the ad hoc service you were talking about, does the airport have facilities on site where, a client who wants to use the ad hoc services can kind of stage
Mhm.
materials, or is it really like they need to be driving into the freight terminal, loading onto the plane and flying out?
No, you can do, it's a very simple term, isn't it like truck to plane or something like that? I know airports do it. No, the logistics are very workable. It would probably be something we actually would do at a Millionaire if we could, because there's no, unless you have something at the cargo facility you need, because you'd have to push back the aircraft as part of it. We try not to push back, we don't have to, we would rather than power out. So it would be something we'd have to look at depending on what's going and who's flying it. I think that if there's something, you could definitely stage, it's something that is part of the conversation. We could find a place for you to put your equipment and be ready for when it comes in. But like I said, it depends on aircraft size and what you wanna bring on and off, so. Yeah.
Any other questions? In person or online?
Sure, yeah, I got one. So I guess if, the numbers are showing that there is capacity available, I guess, are you able to speak to appetite about filling in that capacity?
Oh, yeah, I definitely think we can and should be doing more. You look at us as a perfect geographic location between Boston, New York, and all these outstations up north. I think the feeder is something we could definitely see come back as, things shift around. I guess that, I don't know which one it was. Somebody lost the Amazon contract and they're consolidating operations, which would possibly take demand away from outstations. So you could see like something happen where they fly into Albany and then, put on a prop plane out in the future. I don't know how likely it is, because like I said, the airlines are very open about like who we're flying, where we're flying into, and et cetera. Cargo's not as much. They kind of figure it out on their own. They come to you with the idea. And so, we can definitely push for it. I think that's something you'll see in the next year or so. It's just hard because, like we can say if we put this flight in, how many more passengers would start to fly on it, but cargo, they're like, yeah, we could they already know, like, they already have the answer for that. So it's something we would have to just check in with them and have that conversation. So we'll see. I definitely think you'll see more as we go. Particularly if we get DHL back.
Thank you.
Great, well, thank you very much, David.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And if anyone has any questions, can they reach out to you?
Yes, absolutely. I doesn't start at the office, but I always do, so.
All right, if anyone wants to get in contact with David, reach out to me and I think I can do it for them. All right, we'll move into some of our discussion items then. These should be relatively quick. First one is an update on the Superload corridor study that the Transportation Council is getting underway. You know, we've been talking about this for quite a while. Last year at, I think the August meeting, we looked over the draft RFP at that time, and suddenly got it finalized. We had a little period where we were trying to pull together funding. You know, it's a pretty large study, so we had to knock on a couple doors. Eventually, we were able to work with DOT Region 1 to use some of the Transportation Improvement Program funds, which is the federal funding program that we actually manage for the region. DOT was able to allocate some funds for this study and then another study, a resilience study. So in total, we're able to secure $250,000 of funding for this study, 200,000 of which is coming from the TIP and another 50,000 is coming from our regular planning funds. The schedule, the RFP is currently out. It was released January 23rd. The deadline for proposals is this Friday. So if you're working on one, get it in soon. Then we'll be scoring through the early and mid part of March with consultant selection around the end of March. I checked in with our admin staff yesterday and we've done 25 requests of the RFP so far, which is pretty good for one of our studies. So we're hoping we'll get quite a few proposals by the time the deadline is. Also going on right now is our draft Unified Planning Work Program, which is our federally funded program for what we're going to be doing for each year. We renew it each year. It lasts from April 1st to March 31st. And the current one is out for public review for this upcoming fiscal year of FY26. Some of the highlights of that plan is we're going to start implementing some of our larger plans that we've been working on for the last couple of years. That includes our regional plan update, the In Motion Plan to 2050, and the Capital Region Vision Zero Safety Action Plan. We also have a couple consultant efforts that are being proposed in this UPWP. We have two new linkage studies, one in the city of Rensselaer, one in the town of Stillwater, an ADA transition plan for the village of Scotia. We're also going to be doing a regional household travel survey, which will support the development of our travel demand model, which is how we kind of forecast a lot of the traffic in the region. It supports a lot of our larger planning efforts to see how various improvements or, you know, if there were some sort of disaster, how that would impact traffic flow throughout the whole region. That data that we use now is getting pretty dated, so we're investing pretty heavily in updating that data for the survey. And then lastly is the Superload Corridors Plan, which, like I mentioned, is out for proposals right now. We're also beginning work on an active transportation complete streets sort of network to focus our funding priorities for those types of travel, as well as hosting a couple of workshops, including a transportation and housing workshop and a tools of the trade workshop for our human services transportation. And then we'll also be continuing some of our on-demand services that you know, many of our member agencies have taken advantage of. For the freight side specifically, we're going to be continuing the Freight Advisory Committee, of course, and like we've mentioned a couple times now, do the Superload Corridor study. We're going to continue our collaboration with our academic partners at RPI and UAlbany to both support the efforts that they're working on and get some technical support on our projects. We're also going to be assessing the need to update the 2016 freight plan. You know, that freight plan was a big success. It identified a lot of areas of opportunity in the region that we could develop, areas that we need to focus on planning efforts or we need to focus funding. And at this point, a lot of those priorities have been completed. So we're victims of our own success. We need to do a new freight plan. And, you know, with the other efforts we have going on right now, that's probably not going to be something we're getting to this year, but we're going to be looking through that old freight plan, cataloging what was completed, anything that wasn't, and starting to identify some new priorities for the freight plan update, probably to take place next year. So like I said, public review period is ongoing for the UPWP. The draft report, draft summary and the full report are available on our website. There are also a couple copies out on the desks if you want to take a look as you're heading out today. There was a virtual workshop held several weeks ago, and a recording of that is now available on the YouTube page. And we can take public comments until March 3rd, basically any way that you know how to get in contact with us. You can go to capitalnpo.org/UPWP to see all the materials and to leave any comments you have. Last little update is about our regional planning initiative. I always just like to give everyone an update of where things are at. We have 4 ongoing linkage studies, 2 of which are getting pretty close to wrapping up. That includes the County Route 109 study in the town of Half Moon and Clifton Park, and the Route 7 corridor study in the town of Niskuna. We have 2 linkage studies that are just getting going now. Those are both in the process of consultant selection and contracting. One is for the Village of Ballston Spa, and the other is for the city of Saratoga Springs. We have a couple of technical assistance projects that are ongoing, which is smaller scale projects for us. Most of them are wrapping up very soon here, including the proposed parking study. We have a larger technical assistance project for Albany County that's very bike and pedestrian focused, but it's right around the airport area where, there is all sorts of traffic. That one will be going until next year, but the rest of them will be finished up here in the next couple months, also including the Loudonville Triangle technical assistance we're doing for the town of Pauline. The Albany Airport entrance traffic assessment, North Greenbush, all-way stop analysis, and City of Waterloo street signal analysis. We have a couple of larger planning initiatives that are also ongoing. Most of these aren't managed by us, or the ones that are now kind of wrapped up and we're moving into implementation. That includes assisting DOT with a couple of Pell studies they have going on, our ongoing ADA transition plans, and the Vision Zero Safety Action Plan. And then, of course, the Reimagine 787 project that DOT is leading. That's all the updates that we have here from the Transportation Council. So here's the part of the meeting where I open it up to all of you to share any ongoing freight topics or problems or questions that you have. So if anyone has anything, feel free to chime up. Folks online, drop a message in the chat or raise your hand. Feel free to participate as well.
Good question.
Yeah, go ahead.
The freight forwarder, RFP, do you have anybody from this committee on the evaluation team?
So we're putting together the evaluations right now. It's probably not going to be anyone who is directly involved with the project, just so we can maintain, a little bit of independence for the scoring committee. It's gonna be a pretty small team. It's gonna be us, and a couple of regional level folks looking at that. Anything else? I can go
I
ahead.
would just
Tom.
add, because we had the conversation before everybody else in the room, one of the issues that I'm seeing dealing with other partner states in the region is, there's a lot of talk, concern now about this proposed Union Pacific Norfolk Southern merger, and I mentioned that it's probably less of an issue for New York, because this is basically a CSX state, but in Pennsylvania, they were first happy and now they're concerned. Like shoreline connectivity is a big item of concern on there. So I did offer, if you like, a presentation. I don't know if I can do it in person for the May meeting, but I can certainly do it virtually. Just to give a highlight of what the proposed merger is. It's Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern, which would create the first single railroad transcontinental rail company in the United States, rail company in the United States. There are a lot of, like, what's driving it? What are the potential implications? These things don't happen very often. I think the last really big one was Conrail in 1998 in New York State. DOT had, the other state players had given their public comment and review as part of that. So I believe the timeline here is, I think UP just notified the U.S. Surface Transportation, which is the regulatory body that's going to review the application and either approve or reject it, had indicated that they now are expecting an April 30th resubmission. They'd actually submitted an initial application in December. There's about 6,600 pages of documentation included, but I promise you I did not read them. I did read the executive summary. That was about 5 or 6 pages long, and that was it. But on April 30th, there will be a resubmission. It was rejected because it was incomplete. It was rejected without prejudice. They said resubmit. UPS that are gonna resubmit by April 30th, so we may have a new application to review, and again, I'm only reading the executive summary next time. But, if you'd like, I could provide an update and see what's out there, what are the threats, what are the opportunities, and, because you do get access to the Norfolk Southern system through the DNH connection down through Binghamton, there will be some implications here, in this region, so.
Yeah, I think that'd be a very interesting presentation. So I'll definitely talk to you about that.
That reminds me to ask a question about something that I was involved in when I was with DOT, which was obviously a few years ago. Can anybody give me an update on, are they still running the through produce trains from the west coast to the Rotterdam industrial park? The straight through trains that, they were given. They went straight through, maybe changing power in Chicago or something like that.
That stopped about 5 years ago.
They stopped
Yeah.
it. Do you know why they stopped? It wasn't working or?
I don't know the specifics of it, but they no longer use that facility.
Okay.
Rail-X is the name. of it.
Rail,
Yeah,
correct.
they don't exist. They were absorbed by one of the other railroads. They were competing with their business and they just bought them out.
Okay.
But that facility is now being used, Adirondack Beverage is using for storage now, and they're actively looking for, lieutenant potentially to utilize that building, because it's specialized and it worked well, but it was an operation, so.
That makes me smile because we were involved with Adirondack Beverage, who had a very loud spokesperson at the time. He was a consultant. I thought he was an employee. But he pushed to try and get the throughway doubles permission to get off the throughway, cross the Mohawk and get into the Rotterdam Industrial Park without still hooked up. And they did get the permission, and in fact, they are doing it to this day, to the chagrin and opposition of a few residents there. But interesting that Adirondack took over some of the Rotterdam, because they are fully, their operation is in the Scotia Industrial Park.
That wasn't me, by the lab consultant that you were referring to.
No, I forgot his name. I always thought he was an employee of Adirondack. It turned out he was a consultant, but quite outspoken. In fact, I was at a meeting with him and the town of Glenville supervisor. I almost had to separate them. They got into their discussion rather vociferously.
Love the story of that. All right, well, no one else? Oh, yeah, Luke, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's been paying attention to what's going on with commercial driver's licenses. They're finally gonna start enforcing the law that's been on the books as long as I can remember, and I've been trucking since 1967. So I've been trucking probably, as I look around the room, older than most people have been born here. Maybe, I don't know about you, but since 1967, and it was called a commercial, or it wasn't called, it was a chauffeur's license, class 1, and I couldn't drive interstate until I was 21. But what's going on? President and Sean Duffy, who's Secretary of Transportation, is finally going to enforce a law that's been on the book as long as I can remember, that you have to be able to communicate with an officer and read road signs, which is far too long. Many of these states, including New York, has not adhered to that. And you all can see what's going on with these accidents that are occurring with the people that can't read the road signs or communicate with an officer. And I applaud the President and Secretary Sean Duffy for finally doing something about this. And it's been far too long that this has been going on. And I am very proud of that they're doing that. I've always said this, that when you get behind the wheel of a truck and you're hauling 80,000 pounds down the road, you better know what you're doing. And like I said, I've been doing this since 1967. And when you say you've seen it all, you haven't seen it all. And on many things that I can't mention since there's too many here that I've seen over the course of my career. But, it's finally, they're gonna do something about it, and they're gonna hold, transportation funding up, from what I understand. And to the states that are not adhering to this. And like I said, far too long this has been going on. And you see this out on the road, and I've seen it. I'm not doing the trucking I used to do. Matter of fact, I parked my truck in 2 trailers that I had for this winter. Put my operating authority on hold. Don't know what I'm gonna do in the spring. Just thinking about teaching people how to drive. I taught many drivers over the course of the year. Thinking of doing that again. Probably have to have more news on the radio. Usually, but of course, I don't trust it. That's another story. That's what's going on.
I did have a question for you. In terms of the industry's response to the, you know, enhanced regulation of the existing law. Do you sense any distinction between the independents and the larger fleet operators as far as how they're looking at this? I've spoken to a couple of, on other regulatory matters, and I was surprised at how supportive they were of strict regulation in general. These were large companies. I kind of thought they would be reacting like, well, don't crack down on this industry. We need some flexibility. But they're in constant tension there between themselves and fly-by-night operators who are underselling in the business, and they can't compete on price. And very often it's somebody who probably shouldn't even be behind, an independent shouldn't be behind the truck.
Some of the large trucking companies are opposed to this, I'm sure of it, but most of the owner operators are in favor of it. Small trucking companies are in favor of it. Everybody wants safety on the roads today.
Yeah.
They don't want to, but there is the ones, the roads that still just want to fill the seat. They don't care what's out there, and they file chapter 11, or they go bankrupt, and they open up under another authority, whoever they work with, and you can see that happening all over the country. But the ones that are really into trucking, they want safe drivers out there. And like I said, I certainly applaud them finally doing something about this. There's a lot of issues in the trucking industry today that need to be addressed, but this is the biggest problem that I've seen over the course of my career. And like I said, I've seen many things over the course of my career. So like I said, I applaud them for doing this.
Yeah, I'm on the statewide bridge hit task force, and one of the leading causes of bridge strikes in the states, people unable to understand the warnings about, and detour directions for trucks of certain sizes that don't hit bridges. So hopefully this does increase that safety.
Well, in those cases, some of those are rentals and they don't even need
Yeah,
a CDL, right?
that is true.
That's a whole different.
That's one problem too.
In this, I don't believe that anybody, if you don't have a commercial driver's license, should be operating a vehicle that can't read road signs and communicate with an officer. And I can tell you stories about that, what I've seen, but that's one step that they should go even farther. Giving an interpreter for somebody to get a license, which New York does constantly, is wrong. If you can't communicate with an officer and read road signs, you shouldn't be driving a car, as far as I'm concerned, let alone a truck. That's my opinion.
Specifically Glen Ridge Road and Maple Avenue bridges. Both of them get smacked, and sometimes it is lack of not understanding the signs.
Yeah, hopefully this does increase safety for our truck operators. Thanks for that too. Anything else? All right, well, our remaining meetings for 2026 are going to be May 13th, August 12th, and November 18th, 9:30 a.m. here in this room or online as per usual. So no one else has anything else. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you.